you know, we are getting to the point, Frank, where a lot of companies, they're taking the mick. They are inflating their prices by way over inflation. Is this greedflation or not?
Well, I think they are doing that, and I think it's regrettable that people take advantage of a very difficult situation. But we have to remember that the impact that this kind of greedy behavior has on the overall figures is very minimal, because the real source of inflation are shortages, particularly shortages of energy, also the amount of money that's in circulation and the amount of borrowing that's been sort of undertaken in the last few years. All these things are driving inflation, and the impact that the profiteering makes tends to be fairly limited. But nevertheless, I think in a difficult situation like now, we would expect all of us to be socially responsible. And
what does that mean?
It basically means that, yes, you want to make money, yes, you want to make profits, but you've got to bear in mind that if, for example, you're Tesco or a supermarket, you don't just simply raise prices because you can, because a lot of people will suffer and go hungry as a result of that. So I think a balance needs to be done. And I know the word responsibility has become a meaningless term in contemporary society, but I would expect even the most hardened capitalists to have a sense of responsibility towards our communities and show some solidarity. Matthew,
right, I don't want to make this all about me, but my mobile phone contract, right, has gone up RPI plus 3.9%. And it's infuriated me because I sit there and I think, so you've already hiked it because of inflation, fair enough, whatever. But now you're adding an extra 4% on. And I think it's outrageous to the point where I'm on the cusp of starting a one-woman campaign. I'm about to do a whole undercover investigation looking at what is going on with these supply chains. Are these rises often justified? Because I do not think they are. And as a capitalist, it hurts me a little bit to say that. Where do you stand?
You're on the receiving end of the sharp teeth of capitalism. Look, don't get me started on mobile phone companies. They've made me want to tear every remaining hair of my head out of my head. But I saw in an article today that certain food items in supermarkets have shot up by something like 70%, 80% in a year. Now, inflation is 11%, and that takes into account all sorts of different rises. Some will bring it down, some will push it up. But 70 or 80%, that seems to me to be completely outrageous. Now, the difficulty when it comes to companies is, as I understand it, I'm not an economist, but they owe a fiduciary duty to their shareholders. That suggests, therefore, that we may need to regulate areas of our economy that we don't already regulate. I, like you, because I would describe myself very broadly speaking as a capitalist, but with a soft touch to make sure we have a safety net so we live in a civilised society. But that does make me feel quite queasy. Having said that, the energy sector is regulated. And if the energy sector were not regulated, and if the government hadn't stepped in, people who are already struggling, as we know, to choose between heating and eating, feeding their families or keeping their families warm, would be in even worse condition than they are at the moment. The really scary thing, and I said this on your show last week, is that there are no easy choices here, because we are in, you don't need to exaggerate it, the reality is we are in a real mess. People are really, really struggling out there. And of course, when inflation goes up, that puts huge pressure on the Bank of England to raise interest rates. What does it mean if interest rates go up? It means that people's mortgage rates go up. And that is terrifying.
I'll tell you what, don't go up there if interest rates go up. The savings rates, the interest rates on your savings account, they're never quick enough, are they, these banks? Within a nanosecond, you get text messages about your mortgage going up. I'm still waiting to receive a text message if you've got a savings account. Good luck with that. Frank, though, I have to say, even though things are getting worse financially, there is an awful lot these days now of help and support. I was reading today about these so-called warm spaces, where you've got this council now, they're saying if you can't afford whatever, you can come in, you can get showered, you can have your meals, they're going to put film clubs on, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. So part of me wonders, of course I don't want people to struggle, but then there is a small part of me as well that wonders if out of this challenge is going to come some element of community again.
Well, it always does. Historically, people forget that during the 1930s, in the height of the Depression, communities showed an incredible degree of solidarity and people came together and helped each other. I think we have to remember that things are not as bad as they're going to be. At the moment, the rate of inflation is around 11%. I would imagine that by September next year, we're kind of pushing towards 20%, and that's a massive rise. And it seems to me that we got to begin to think about the fact that we're in for a long, not recession, but depression as a result of the economic decisions that were taken within different nations, but also the global circumstance. And the only way that we can come out of this strong and confident is if we manage to get our communities to get their act together and do more of what we're talking about, Michelle, because that's the way forward. We can't always rely on government to make things right. We need our neighbors, and we need our family members and our communities to begin to see how we can give confidence to one another.
Yeah,
to be able
we
to
help
deal with
each
this.
other. Final word to you,
Just very quickly, on the face of it, I agree with you. Community is absolutely essential. But it also worries me to hear people coming from your side of the political debate, or roughly where you are, saying those things. Why?
Which is my side.
But why? I think we're on different sides of the debate. I think that's been clear. But why does it worry me? It worries me because that's an excuse, or can be used as an excuse, misused as an excuse, for the state not to step in, for the state to take the brakes off, the state to say, look, we're not going to fund the welfare state properly and humanely. That really worries me. It's so important at times like this that benefits are used by people who are working and people who are not working, rise with inflation, because if they don't, the people at the top end, people earning hundreds of thousands or millions, they'll be relatively fine. The people at the bottom end will be squished. The community didn't help people in the Dickensian slums.
Well, I'll tell you what you do. You talk about benefits. I'll tell you what this government does need to get on top of. I think it was £8 billion last year lost to fraud when it comes to benefits. So unfortunately, yes, I do agree, Matt, a lot of people in need do need benefits, but I do worry that in this country we have a welfare state that is indeed a little bit too easy to take the Michael out of. Tell me your thoughts on all of that. GBViews at gbnews.uk is the email address you can get me on.